COVID-19, better known as coronavirus, has spread throughout the world. Symptoms of this respiratory disease may include fever, cough, and shortness of breath. These symptoms may show up 2 to 14 days after exposure. If you are experiencing these symptoms and have come into contact or are in an area with an ongoing outbreak, please call a hotline and/or consult with a physician. Clean and disinfect high-touch surfaces. For more information, please visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, premier pelvic health expert and women's wellness warrior. I'm the host of Sum of Your Parts podcast. As you may already know, we're interrupting our normal scheduled podcast to bring you a series on COVID-19 care, how to survive during our time of coronavirus and quarantine. I have specialists ranging from those to cover information about the virus to those on how to deal with communication, well-being, wellness, and mental health. So join me in listening to these over the next few days. Thank you. Stay well.
On today's episode, we will be talking to psychotherapist and author Tara Miller. Tara is an expert in resilience. She brings a combination of neuroscience-based information along with specialized training, research, and hours of experience in psychotherapy to this new area of resilience. Let's learn about how we can be more resilient in this time of stress.
So I'd like to thank psychotherapist Tara Miller for joining us today. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you for having me. It's good to talk to you again.
So, a lot of us are going through so much change and uncertainty with this coronavirus. It's nothing that any of us have ever dealt with before, this kind of massive quarantine and shutdown. What are the things that you're seeing that are happening with this?
Yeah, so I think what I'm seeing is very opposite to how we're used to dealing with threat in our lives. We have this amazing survival brain that senses threat in our environment and then sends all of the mechanisms in place for us to respond to it and fight, flight, or freeze usually. And we're all familiar with that part of our brain, that part of our mind. And usually that happens because we sense the threat first in an unconscious way and then we respond. In this case, what I'm seeing is we didn't know there was a threat until somebody told us there was a threat. And the threat that we're getting is really from the top of the brain down, which is our thinking brain, is getting information, it's creating fear in our limbic system, and then it's igniting this fight, flight, or freeze response. And then on top of that, then we're hearing words like quarantine and lockdown, and really it's shaking our entire system up because we are looking for a threat that we can't see, but we know because one part of our brain has communicated it to us, but we can't respond. And in the ways we might want to respond, like fight, flight, or freeze, our only option really is freeze, except when we go online, we are seeing more of a tendency to want to fight, or we're seeing people retreat into flight. So there's a lot of interesting symptoms coming out from people that really are just these attempts of the brain to make sense of what's going on and not knowing what to do with all the activation in, I should be fighting or fleeing, but I can't do either and I don't know what to do. So it's an interesting process where the threat is coming from information and it's completely unseen and it's throwing us into chaos. And then we're going back to the information and an attempt to find some soothing, but then that's giving us more fire for the fight, flight, or freeze. So really, I'm just watching the activation among everybody, which is contagious, continue to escalate with every news feed, with every post on social media. It's just amping up, and you go outside and you feel the energy. If you need to go get groceries, you're feeling it. It's vibrating everywhere.
It's funny, the two of the things that you just said. Number one, I think I already had too much on my table with my podcast and not getting out all the ones I've already recorded. And I think you're right. I think for me, it's a fight thing that's been activated because the only way I know to fight is to try to help people. And right now, I think I'm helping people by at least I'm hoping I'm helping people by getting out this information. So I've gone into overdrive these production of these videos, which I know I don't even have the time or energy to do, but I'm like, this is a guy feel useful, like, because I felt helpless.
And action is powerful. We want to have, there is this opportunity where we can be creative, where we can have more focus because of the intensity of this. But for a lot of people, they're feeling a little more paralyzed. They're feeling panicky, and it's just building and continuing. And our systems were made to fight or flight, and then it's over. It's an event, and then it's completed. And right now, it's so ongoing. All that energy is stirred up, all that cortisol, everything's pumping through us. It will either help us move into some creativity, into some action, or it will go in the opposite direction where we're going to see more panic and anxiety and psychosomatic things like pain, but also mood things like irritability and people snapping at each other and a whole host of other issues that are going to come out of this if we don't really find ways to redirect the energy and move through it differently.
You know, I was thinking recently when I went to the supermarket, I think the last time I went to the supermarket was probably about 2 weeks ago. And I was calm still at that point in time. I think a lot of, I think that was kind of really when the panic was starting to hit for everybody. But then I realized after the fact, like I did a perfect example of mirroring. You mirror what's around the activities and the behaviors around you. Like I got into the supermarket and all the toilet paper was gone.
Yep.
And that triggered me.
Yeah.
I go, oh my God, does people know something that I don't know? And same thing, I went down and the spaghetti was gone and the canned goods were gone.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I know there's still going to be there's still going to be an ability to get food in essentials, that triggered me to the point where I just started hoarding. And I started, and I know, and there's a lot of guilt even behind the hoarding, but I just started like, well, everybody knows something I don't know. I need to prepare. And I just started grabbing.
There's a powerful psychology to that scarcity and I felt it too, and I felt it in my body, which is, there's no food. Well, that's threatening our basic needs. So of course that survival instinct is going to rise up and be even more powerful. And really anxiety is just a fight or flight response that doesn't serve an evolutionary purpose. It's just that mechanism going off because of what we've seen. And we are seeing this sense of we are animals. You put animals that are free in a cage, you're going to see some changes in behavior. And human beings are no different. We're seeing some really radical shifts in behavior.
You know, I still don't quite understand the toilet paper thing. I can understand the food and the toilet paper thing is not something I've been really able to contemplate.
I'd go for coffee before toilet paper personally.
I know, other than the fact that somebody did it and then somebody else had the same response that I did, like, oh, maybe they know something I don't know. And then that just kind of snowballed.
It's absolutely very possible. Everything is contagious. And we, in most of our lives, because there's more of a sense of control and normalcy, we're not aware of how much we are templating off of other people, but there's an emotional contagion that's going on right now that's then creating this behavioral pattern that is contagious. And ultimately we're kind of like sheep. We see one thing happen and we fall, oh, well, I don't want to miss something. If that's something I need for survival, I better do the same. And it's all a very hardwired in, built-in mechanism. And then after we get home and we have, 40 rolls of toilet paper, and it's like, what did I do that for?
I know. I bought cans of canned collard greens, and I've never in my life eaten canned collard greens. But I thought, ooh, if we're not getting out for a long time, we need protein and we need vegetables. And I didn't have any more room in my freezer for frozen vegetables. I was like, collard greens, they're high in a lot of vitamins.
That's right.
Nobody else is buying the collard greens. I'm buying
a lot of what we're doing is reactive and it just doesn't make sense. It makes sense when you understand how the brain and that primal brain works, though, for survival. And that can provide significant amounts of soothing for people if they are able to take a step back and go, this isn't personal. This isn't a me thing. This is me and my animal brain. This is my nervous system responding to this situation. And even in the understanding, it's like, okay, I get it.
So what kind of things should we be doing to kind of keep our sanity or even to protect ourselves for the afterwards, after all this craziness?
Right. The first thing I'm recommending, and it was remarkable even with myself when I took, it was almost 48 hours of a media fast. I didn't pick up a week ago. I didn't look at Facebook. I didn't look at anything that had any virus information on it. No news at night, nothing. And I felt at least 50% better in 24 hours. So I'm recommending get the information that you need once a day, not at night, not before you go to bed, and
Yes.
then leave it and really have the discipline during this time to not be addicted, because you could spend your entire day scrolling and responding. And I mean, you're looking for soothing, but you're not going to find it there. So when you understand that, and also that you're not getting any of the good statistics when you're looking. I mean, we have over 100,000 people that have recovered, but nobody's talking about it. And if I post that on a social media thing, people are rejecting it because our negative bias serves to keep us alive, and people are rejecting it because that doesn't feel like it's going to serve survival. It does help with your mental hygiene, though. So the first thing I recommend is really being disciplined about how much content you're absorbing, because most of that is passive. It's going right into your survival brain, your unconscious mind. And then your unconscious mind says, seems like it's really important because it's all you're looking at, it's all you're talking about, it's all you're thinking about. I better give you more. I better give you more of this. So then we create this really vicious cycle in our own minds for the worst case scenario and for our worst health case scenario and our outcomes as far as mental, emotional, physical, even spiritual health. There's a long-term risk. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is what all the experts are saying and the things that we know, but they do really matter. Move your body. It's really important to have movement. I would say if you're feeling super anxious, though, I wouldn't go for a run. That it might feel good in the moment, but you're actually doing a flight path in your mind. So if you're feeling extra anxious, go for longer walks, do more gentle activity. There's a lot of fitness that we do that really is fight or flight. It is a stressor to the system. And if you're already stressed, it might be too much for you. So movement, nutrition, pay attention to your sleep, get more of it, and pay attention to your conversations, because what's happening also is that nobody's talking about anything else. This is something that will end. This is a portion of your life that will end up being a sliver in the grand scope of time. You have other parts of your life and you have other things that are waiting for you when this is over that you're not talking about, but that your brain really needs you to start talking about. So it's really clamping down on your content that you're consuming and the content that you're also sharing out of your own mouth.
I think that's a good point because, these news outlets, the coronavirus is nothing new for them in that getting information out, and they sell information by sensationalizing it. And
Yeah.
so, yes, they are portraying facts, but they're focusing on the negative facts to draw readers and views in.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. Like I would get in bed, and one of the worst things you could do is get on a tablet or a phone, or especially
Before
at
bed.
night. But I found myself doing it before I go to bed. I was like flipping through the news stories because, like, all right, before I go to bed, I want to make sure I didn't miss out on anything. And then I found, then I was anxious and I couldn't
Yep.
sleep, and I was, hearing these stories about, the horrific stories, which unfortunately there are going to be people who are going to suffer from this, but the majority of us are going to get a cold.
The vast majority of us are going to get a cold or no symptoms at all and then recover. And the focus on recovery is really being missed because it doesn't get the same clicks.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing is if we're chronically stressed, like you were saying before, that affects our immune system. So
100%.
So we need to be doing things to try to relax. And yeah, I've stopped with going on the news. I try to, and I don't even do it every day, but every couple of days or two, I'll go check the CDC if there's anything new or new. I'm in New Jersey, so I'll check the New Jersey like government health site or WHO, the World Health Organization, just to see what they have to say. But I try to go more to the authorities and see if there's anything else I should be preparing or doing. And it seems like it's all kind of, what we're, stay away from
Yep.
people, do things that are healthy.
And we'll hear about it if something changes. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, we're not gonna miss out on the bad information. So that part and the filtering is really important. And then using your mind for your own benefit. This is a time, we were talking about this before. This is a time where you can actually build resilience. You can come out of this stronger because of the work you do now. And so that you can handle future challenges, future struggles even better. But there are people that are finding ways to use this for, like you are, with creativity and with action, and to keep things moving forward so that they're ready in their lives or their businesses when this is over. And what everybody can do in any moment is focus on the end. A lot of advice is, well, be mindful and stay in the moment. There's lots of people where this moment really sucks for them, and it's hard for them to regulate or even meditate or do some of these things to feel calm. One of the things that you can realize is that your mind, your brain, your nervous system doesn't care if something's past, present, or future. It will respond how it's directed. So in this case, for a lot of people, and I do this myself, I'm thinking about the end. When this is over, because I know it will be over, what am I going to do first to celebrate? What am I going to do next? What am I looking forward to? What trip am I going to plan? Won't it be nice to be able to have the freedom to move into the world again and to feel safe around other people, and to have, I picture the all of the shelves that were empty are still empty. I imagine that they're full. And so little moments of creating the optimal scenario in your mind, your nervous system doesn't even care. It just lights up in the ways that are going to self-medicate you with really great things like GABA and oxytocin, and boosting your own serotonin, because you're daydreaming about a time when you don't feel like this anymore, when you feel better, when things are more optimal, when you do feel more assured of your own health. And as we think of those things, if we track in our nervous system, if we check in with our physical body, even as I'm talking about it, things start to settle, your breath will start to slow, your nervous system will start to go into parasympathetic all by itself. And it's just this really quick, easy brain hack that says, this is temporary. And in the future, what am I going to do differently? How am I going to feel? And how do I want to get through this time? And even just those little mind nuggets will help you weather the storm and not be so stuck in it.
I think too, there's so many little things that you can do for your mental health too, that we can do in like the limits of our quarantine.
Yeah.
For people who are lucky enough not to live in a city, it's a little bit easier. But when it was sunny the other day, we got the whole family out for a walk, and we
Yeah.
went on some hiking trails. Yes, we passed other people, but we just did our 6 feet distance. And just, I was so surprised at how much better I felt just getting out of the house.
Yeah.
I think in a city, you got to get a little bit more creative, even if you can just open a window, stick your head out the window.
Fresh air is a good thing right now. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, staying at home doesn't mean staying indoors the entire time. If you're in those spaces where you have to stay home, you can still be in a yard if you have one, or you can still put your head out your patio or your window. Having a sense that you're, anything that you can do to remind yourself that you're not an animal in a cage, because that's how, we feel cagey for a reason, because we feel like we're trapped. But there's things that you can do still to exercise what you do have control over, where you do have freedoms. And that's, again, that mind flip that it's so easy because of the negative bias to focus on what has been taken away from us, or what we're missing, or what we're angry about. And we're wired that way. It takes 5 to 10 positive things at a time like this to counteract that one negative thing. So we do have to do extra work right now to preserve our mental health. And things like that are important: going out, getting sunshine, laughing. In my family, we don't go to bed without laughing out loud at least once a day. And we will do ridiculous things to get the other people to laugh, because it's so important to feel like you're normal. It's that normalcy in health that we have to construct now and work harder to do. But in that, we're still building resilience, and we're not allowing ourselves to get, trapped in that sinkhole.
I like the fact that they seem to be rebranding the social distancing, and now they're calling it physical distancing.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that's such a great idea because you can still stay social even though you're in the house. I mean, I was talking earlier, and I've been talking to my family about this. There's the lost art of picking up the phone and talking
Right?
to somebody.
Yes.
My kids are like, what? Text? Like, pick up the phone, And now there's so many different video chatting abilities. Some girlfriends in my town, one of them sent out an invitation last week, which I thought was fun. And I see this trend happening now, where we did a virtual wine and cheese the other night, and 6 of us got on Zoom and just chatted, and each with our little glass of wine. But I've seen, like, we're not the only ones. Everybody else, that they're doing these little like Zoom parties, and some people are getting dressed up, some people are just hanging out with their friends.
I love that.
I have 2 young kids. I have a 10, 12-year-old, and I've even, prior to this, I did not want them to do any kind of social media interaction with their friends because I didn't want them on their tablets. But now I'm telling them, once all their work is done after 5 o'clock, I want them to get on, whether it's calling a friend, not just texting, calling, or getting on a video sort of platform where they can see and talk to their friends to keep their mental health. Because otherwise, I noticed doing that, they stop bickering as much, not completely, but just to have that interaction.
I've noticed, because sports are all canceled, and that's a big resource for my kids as teenagers, and they're definitely more irritable without their usual sports and physical fitness activities. So trying to get them out for walks or hikes or safe social distancing things that they can do is going to definitely be helpful. And also being aware of making connections, but also who you're connecting with. So you want to make sure that that people know that you're there for them, but you don't want to only be connecting with people that are in a low place. You want to make sure that you also are balancing connecting with people that have that healthy optimism, because that's contagious also. So that's going to help bring you up. And wine and cheese parties where people are laughing and being silly, it's like, that's the perfect solution.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other suggestions that you can think of? Like, what do we need? Are there any things that we should be preparing for after this is done? Because you're saying before that you're expecting there to be more issues with anxiety and chronic somatic disorders.
Right. So people that maybe aren't aware of some of these things, or having a harder time with their mood, or if they really are quarantined in and feeling suppressed and struggling a little bit more, because we're designed for the short-term fight or flight, and this is a long-term, I expect to see that there's going to be some increases in depression, anxiety, sleep troubles, chronic pain, certain somatic complaints as a result of this. So all of these things I'm recommending. And obviously, if people feel like they're still struggling, then there's no substitute for professional support if people feel like they are really struggling, and they should seek those out, which many are doing virtual work right now sooner than later, so that you can get support while you're going through this and not wait until the end when everybody else is getting on with their life and your brain has still stuck in these old neural pathways. So the awareness of our thoughts and our behaviors and what we're doing with our minds right now, that creates habits in the brain, because the brain wants to be efficient, use less energy to create a habit. We can choose to create positive ones, or we can choose to allow the negative ones. The negative ones are going to be much easier for our brain to lay down. So that awareness of what can I do to create positive neural pathways to support me in this situation and getting out of it. Anything that's going to create neurogenesis, again, that's exercise, that's walking, learning something brand new that you've never done before, really great for the brain. And there's so much more opportunity than ever before, really, to learn something new online for free. Those opportunities are huge and rich right now. So I would encourage people to use the art of distraction. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing to distract your brain into those positive ways to build positive pathways. And then when you fast forward in your life, if you fast forward a year from now when this is all over, or even 5 years, how do you want to tell the story of how you got through it? And it's one of my favorite brain hacks because if you're out of the situation looking back, you have a different perspective. So in 5 years, I want to say, oh man, remember that coronavirus? Holy crap, that was such an intense time. And I struggled, but this is what I did. And this is who I became. And this is how I went through that challenge as a story that I'm going to tell my children and my grandchildren, because it's this moment in history. But I get to choose who I'm going to be and how I'm going to behave in this time based on how I want to tell the story about myself from that time. So that time shift is really helpful right now, because nobody wants to say, oh, I actually just got saturated with the media and I went into a deep depression and then, I never got back on my feet. Nobody wants to tell that story. So if in 5 years you want to tell a story of strength and resilience, and you have that in your mind and you have an idea of the story you want to tell, your brain will start to organize to help support you behave that way now. That's my favorite tip.
I think that's great. And I was thinking too, like, as humans, we're very resourceful and we're very creative.
Yeah.
And I can see the tendency to want to curl up in a ball, because especially this past weekend, there were some days that it was rainy, and that was when I was going through the news articles, and there was this tendency, like, I was like, I have no motivation to get out of bed. So I see that.
Yeah.
And, but I think that we need to like look within ourselves and be like, no, there's things I can control, and there are things I can create, and there's things I can pivot and change and do something different. I really feel for people that businesses are closed and if they've lost their jobs. But I found out that, so if you're dealing with financial stress on top of all this other stuff, there is the Small Business Administration, and they're offering loans for business owners, nonprofits, homeowners, and renters during this time.
That's great.
So you just need to go on the website and put in an application sorry about
I
that.
lost you.
I know, I'm finding that unfortunately with Zoom being so popular nowadays, it's even more glitchy than it has ever been.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. But so I don't know if that part recorded, but I was saying that people that are under financial stress, that the Small Business Administration is offering loans to get people through this for small businesses, nonprofits, homeowners, and renters, which pretty much sounds like that includes a lot of people. So in talking about glitchy, their website is, I guess, incredible, because I've gone on it myself to try to start working on an application. But the best times, they say, are between 7 at night and 7 in the morning, because there's so many people applying for these loans right now that it's going to be very slow. But there are resources out there. I mean,
we're seeing the same in Canada, where everything's glitchy. It's not available yet, or you can't get through, but they are trying to get everybody some support. And ultimately, this is one of those unique experiences where we're all in it together. There's not anybody that's exempt. And that's pretty rare, because usually when you go through, especially like a financial disruption or challenge, you feel like you're alone, and there's a lot of shame attached to that. And right now there's no shame. We are all feeling the rocking of the boat.
Yeah. And I think that there's going to be a lot of, there's got to be a lot of help out there, because we can't have our economic systems crashing. This is just going to be it's going to be a hiccup, and, we'll figure it out. There's ways to get creative.
There, and when I think it's important to do your self-care, to know we're all going to be a little more tired than usual. This is taking a lot of our energy. So get more sleep, take naps, and rest when you can. But when you have those moments, then use it for creative things, because there's going to be innovation that comes out of this also, and completely new industries that are going to be hiring like crazy. To prepare for avoiding the next one, or preventing, or just future technological growth in general. So out of this, there will come opportunity if you're connecting with your mind and your body, and you're doing the things that are going to help you stay healthy and regulated as best as possible, and giving yourself what you need when you need it. When you do have those moments, you could be the one that creates a whole new thing that helps somebody else, or that actually slingshots you further ahead when you come out of this than you would have otherwise. So there is opportunity if you're taking the rest to recuperate. And then when you're able to, that you're finding flow states and you're doing the things that you can do to really focus and feel creative and feel like you're making progress, because then you feel like you're a little bit more in control, at least that you're doing something positive.
And there's something too I was going to get my kids to start doing, because, I'm especially concerned. I mean, we're all under stress. And I think a lot of times with kids, they don't really understand it. And if they're seeing us, that it makes it more difficult for them. So I've actually, and I think this is great I should probably start doing the same thing, but I'm going to have them start journaling. And I said, just, write down like how you're feeling that day, or something good that happened that day, or just take 10 minutes to just write down something about that day. And I think that also gives your brain a good opportunity to process what's going on.
Absolutely. And they're saying that, we already know the science behind a gratitude practice, how that's powerful for wiring your brain into a positive state. This is a great time to have a gratitude practice because there's something good in every moment. So in any moment, I can find a place in my body that feels particularly calm or particularly healthy, or I can do a dance party in the living room or go for a walk in the sun. I can instantly change my state as I want to, as I direct myself to. And in that moment, it's easy to find gratitude. Oh my gosh, I'm glad that it's not the apocalypse where there's no clean air and there's no sunshine. There's always that flip side of, I'm so grateful for feeling healthy or feeling calm or being all together with my children or being able to move my body. If everybody wrote down 10 things they were grateful for each night before bed, it would really help support everybody and families going through this.
But, I think you've had such wonderful recommendations, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Where can people find out more about you?
So my website is probably the best way to connect with me. TaraDawnMiller.com is where you could find me. There's a contact form as well if you need to reach out. There's an ebook you can download on the resilient mind and things you can do to help increase your resiliency right now also. And I hope that some of this is helpful to balance some of the other content that's out there.
I think this is wonderful. I really enjoyed this interview and I love talking to you.
Thanks. I do too.
So thank you once again.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Today's episode was brought to you by the Pelvic Floor Store, your source for personal health. You can find us at www.pelvicfloorstore.com. For more information on today's episode and women's wellness, please go to drbetsygreenleaf.com.